Hello, everybody, and welcome to my new show, Prelude to Positivity. My first guest is someone who I think embodies positivity online and off, Mr. Mark Pellegrino. He's an actor, an acting teacher, an objectivist, an activist, a radical capitalist, but you have to explain some of those to us. He's also an all-around great guy, and he's most known for being such a great guy, but also for being Lucifer on Supernatural, of all things. Welcome, Mark.
Thank you very much, Tommy. It's great to see you. When was the
So do you
last
want
time?
to explain?
When was the last time we saw each other? Now, has it been 2 or 3 years, maybe
It
more?
was Vegas. It's been like 3 years in Vegas or 4 years in Vegas.
Yeah.
It's got to be.
Wow.
It was Vegas was the last time for sure. That was the last time. But that was a good weekend. It was a nice weekend.
It was.
It was a fun time. So do you want to explain
Sure
what an
was.
objectivist is and what a radical capitalist is?
I could try. I don't know that I'm eminently qualified to do that, but an objectivist is a type of philosophy
Okay.
that holds existence as a primary and reason as your means of knowing existence. And so reason is also applied to ethics and to social problems as well, which is why capitalism is the economic slash political system that an objectivist would promote, because that system is reason based and reality based. So, and the philosophy of objectivism was I guess birthed by an author named Ayn Rand, who wrote *The Fountainhead* and *Atlas Shrugged* are her two most prominent works. But in the 60s, one of her devotees, Nathaniel Branden, who was a clinical psychologist, encouraged her to write a textbook to be taken seriously as a philosopher. So she wrote *Introduction to Objectivist Epistemology*. And since then, of course, the philosophy is taken seriously in some realms, but in other realms, academics sort of shun her because she was not a professional academic herself. And she made philosophy very easy to understand. She explained complex theories of concepts and relational concepts between human beings and the world in a very simple way. So I think a lot of academics don't like her. And a
So we
radical
don't.
capitalist is a radical capitalist is somebody who is consistently free market oriented.
Okay. Well, that makes sense. That totally makes sense. Now, for people who don't know you yet, which there probably aren't that many though, but can you just tell us a little bit about you? I know one thing, that you're kind of rare because you're a native Los Angeles born person, which you hardly ever meet anybody in LA or New York that's born there. So that's rare. And then how did you get involved in acting? When did you know you wanted to be an actor? Things like that. How'd you grow up?
Yeah, I was born in Pasadena and raised in Van Nuys. We moved to Van Nuys in 1970, 71, and I grew up there. Culture capital of the world.
Yes.
I think Robert Redford's from Van Nuys too, so we can't knock it too bad. um, I was never interested in acting as a kid. I was interested in science, marine biology. I was obsessed with sharks.
Wow.
Jaws scared the crap out of me, and I embraced that fear with all myself. And I wanted to study ichthyology, actually, which is the study of fish. But I didn't have much of an aptitude for science after high school. In college, I didn't find myself so interested in it. I was drifting more into history and psychology. And then, even then, I found college freshman year sort of an extension of high school, and with the exception of one class, not particularly interesting. So when I went to the back of the line after freshman orientation and couldn't get any of the classes that I wanted, I dropped out and sort of drifted around. I worked at a gas station, sang in a rock band, not well, but I sang in one, and met a girl, a crazy girl, fell in love with her, and just for 6 months sort of didn't know what I wanted to do. And at the end of that feverish time, I saw an advertisement for a modeling school. They were giving away free classes. So I thought, all right, I'm not ugly, so maybe I should check this out and see if there's anything in it for me. and they had acting classes that were part of the package that were for free. I liked the price. I went in, and the acting teacher happened to be a fairly popular commercial actor, though I didn't know that because I didn't really watch a lot of the medium. And he set me up with an agent. He thought I had talent for some reason, set me up with an agent, and I started working before I knew how to act. And
Wow.
and because I didn't know how to act, my agent gave me a list of about 10 schools. I picked the closest and the cheapest, and it happened to be, I think, the best school on the West Coast. You know, they've turned out Ashley Judd and Scotty Kahn and James Franco and
Oh, not
and
shabby.
tons of great actors, I think, and even greater ones that didn't make it into the limelight. And then I fell in love with the craft there, and the rest is history. Really learning to become an actor is more learning to get out of your own way. That's why our mentor, Sandy Meisner, said it takes 20 years to be an actor. You're really learning just to get out of your own way. And so it took me a number of years to apply what I was learning in class before I started to more or less get out of my own way when I was working. And that's basically, does that make sense? Is that my story
That
in a
makes sense. That's,
nutshell?
that's the journey. That's the journey. Um, and then you went on to be in so many of our favorite shows like Supernatural, Lost, Being Human, 13 Reasons Why, Grimm, Ghost Whisperer, Dexter, Prison Break, the movie The Big Lebowski. But I noticed that you play most of your roles are the bad guy role. Do you like that role better than being the good guy? Do you find it more interesting? Do they just find you better for the role? Like you normally will be the bad guy.
Yeah, I think the bad guys are interesting. I think narratively they drive the story, but I've had to accommodate myself to the fact that, when I walk into a room, people seem to be intimidated by me, and the first energy they get from me is something, I don't know, ominous. So they sort of automatically place me in the bad guy role. But I think things started to shift a little bit with Dexter, to be honest with you, because even though you could say, excuse me, even though you could say Paul is an asshole and he's a bad guy, he's an ex-con, he's a wife beater, drug addict, and definitely has issues with social, mixing. Um, he was a complex enough character that I think people started to see me as in a different light, and
Mm.
then it just so happened that I think they started to write more generally characters that were more complex. But Paul was a complex character, and I noticed after that the bad guys that I played had qualities that were mixed enough to be interesting and dynamic. So I like it. As long as people want to hire me for that, I'll do it.
But even Lucifer was kind of two-sided because we know who he is. He's Lucifer. But his story is his father kicked him out, and the way you played it was that way. His father, he had daddy issues, and then he had his own son who he cared about, but in a weird way, but still cared about. And it was just very complex. It wasn't just I'm evil, end of story.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And, Lucifer went through a bunch of transformations too. I think the Lucifer of season 5 was a pretty formidable character. I think there was a great deal of subtle complexity in that character. And even in Nick, the suggestion that he was a faithful, a man of faith whose life was destroyed and was angry at God. Later on, the narrative changed, and that's not exactly what he was. But that was a complex phenomenon. And to hear Lucifer come to him in the form of his wife and say, "I will never lie to you," that's also a complex take on a character. Um, and um, and so yeah, Lucifer of season 5 had darkness, but that hint of spice that made him sympathetic, and later on, I think he just changed completely to a more, I don't want to say buffoony, but he was certainly
He was a wise guy.
more clownish, more
Yeah,
bark and less bite than previous.
I found he was like the class bully, the the wise ass who's always smarting off at everybody, and that was his persona at that point. Playing with
Yeah,
you
yeah,
just
it was really more that, yeah, like the grandiose, the narcissist who projects a really big image, but really it's an image that's glass, and it just takes a
oh
little
yeah.
touching to fracture it. And I think you saw that in the scene between Gabriel and Lucifer, when Gabriel told him off and said, "Here's what you are, pal." And he actually made Lucifer shed a little tear there. And I think that's where you saw that really what Lucifer was a kid. Like, aren't we all? I'm 55 years old, but I feel it physically, but inside I feel like I'm still that same insecure, fucked up little boy that was, that people made fun of.
You're still learning things, you're still learning about yourself. I don't think we ever stop that. I don't think you ever stop. I think once you stop doing that, then what's the point of life at that point?
I agree. I don't think you should ever stop learning. I never stop learning, or I try not to, at least.
And I mean, it goes without saying that you're going to miss Supernatural, I'm sure, and those people, because that was a special thing. But is there anything in particular you're going to miss about it?
Yeah, it's funny because I feel like I've been in this place multiple times with Supernatural, where I thought it was over, and I thought I was saying goodbye to it. Only in season 5, it didn't hurt so much. It was just a fun gig, and I thought it was over. Then once I started coming back multiple times, I started to sort of depend on it. Like, wow, this is a thing. And then a group of people that I just sort of liked became a group of people who were like family that I would joke with and eat lunch with and have fun with. The crew was just there was no barrier between the crew and the cast, and oftentimes there is. Hollywood sets can be weird that way. There's sort of a caste system, unofficially or officially, I don't know, that goes on there, but there wasn't with Supernatural. I was joking with the camera operators all the time, busting each other's balls back and forth. But I knew that if I did a take and I looked over at Brad when he was done filming it and he went like this, I knew it was good. I knew I could pass on to the next thing because I knew he had my back, but I'm gonna miss that. I'm gonna miss that busting balls, playfulness, where you feel like you're just going to work with your friends.
Do you think it was different because you all were away from home too, most of you, and that it was in Canada, and that's might be a little difference between being in Hollywood and filming there?
I mean, yeah, I think most of us are used to filming on location, and it's definitely true that when you're on location, especially if you're doing a film for a couple of months, you do build up a close-knit family. And then it's really weird. You disband and go on to your next project. You probably don't see people for years, but it's not like you hang out with them in between. With these guys, I mean, I was going to conventions with them and seeing them on the weekends, and we'd break bread together. And when I was drink. And I've only had one other cast that I've been that close to off camera. So I'm going to miss that camaraderie. Hopefully we'll have it still when the conventions come back, if the political powers ever let us be humans again.
We're waiting. We're all waiting to jump back into that. Your next project, or your current project that you're involved with, the Guardian Project, isn't a role. It's actually a real life stand that you're taking. So I want to know if you can explain how and why you came to this place that you're at now with the Guardian Project, which I'm actually wearing the t-shirt. If you can see.
Yay! Am I wearing it? Oh,
I'm wearing
a Lucifer shirt, but not a. Thank you so much.
Still representing.
It's laundry day, so mine's in the laundry. Yeah, well, I mean, like John Walsh, who did America's Most Wanted. I mean, he experienced a tragedy, and out of that tragedy, he's helped other people with America's Most Wanted. And then there's a guy who developed and produced Catfish, which I think has been running for 6 seasons. Yeah. That came out of his own experience, his own life experience, where he was bamboozled by somebody. He fell in love with somebody online who wasn't the person that he thought she was. And so I guess, piqued by that sense of injustice, he went out and did something about it. Well, for me, there's been successive waves of defamation that have come at me. And at a certain point, it got so serious that I went to see a defamation lawyer. And what I discovered about at least California law is that you have to have extremely deep pockets to start a lawsuit against somebody for defamation. And then a couple of things happen. There's a slap suit, so you get automatically slapped with a countersuit, and all of your media gets opened up to the perusal of the opposition, who can then take anything out of context to paint you in whatever light they want to. And then you have to prove intent on the part of the person who's defaming you, intent to destroy your life. And you'd think that would be easy given the way in which they do it, but it's not. And then if you lose the case, you have to pay the other person's legal fees on top of the enormous retainer fees that you've had to pay. And I thought, well, that's prohibitive even for a person of means. It's prohibitive for, what about that poor person who's been isolated and destroyed, who doesn't have the means to protect him or herself against these onslaughts? And so I decided that during one of the waves of bullying, a group of fans circled the wagons around me, and they started producing evidence that all the lies were in fact lies. And that had the effect of shutting the people up to a degree. They'd pull themselves behind their private accounts and talk whatever shit they wanted to. But I thought, wow, nobody else has that privilege. That's a privilege for me to be surrounded by people who are trying to protect me with the truth. And I want that for other people. So the Guardian Project started out with me and someone by the name of the screen name of Estella, Arch Luminous, who protected me and became sort of a bodyguard, and came up with the notion of the Guardians as an ad hoc community of people that just decide to protect people online. And then I decided to make it into something more, a Catfish-esque show that dealt with, I think, the main problem that I think causes this relational aggression online, and that's anonymity. So when you can expose the person who's committing what I think are crimes, there are those who would disagree. They would call them civil violations. So however you call them, they're violating somebody's rights. They're trying to break down their career by spreading false narratives. I thought that if we exposed that person and gave them the opportunity to confront the victim, and in that humanization process find some kind of change, if the victim could forgive the victimizer, if there could be some kind of reconstitution, but in a personal, emotional way, that would be great. If not, then we wanted to provide the resources for the victim to get their life back together again if it's been objectively ruined by this person. If that person started a petition to get them fired, or something, we would help them with the legal services to reestablish their reputation and then get their life back on track again. That would be the idea. And if we can prosecute a bad guy or two, that would be awesome.
Sure, and also to be clear about it too, some people I've seen, because I watch what's going on, I'm involved with what's going on with you usually, because I actually even backed the project because I believed in it. But when I posted about the project that day, somebody had put up something saying that you do realize what they're doing is illegal, you can't expose these people. But we're not talking about a bully who says, you look fat in that outfit today. We're talking about somebody who's a troll, which is kind of a difference between a troll and a bully. A troll is someone who goes deeper and tries to ruin your life, not just calling you names and trying to trip you in the schoolyard. This is something that's very dangerous for your livelihoods, for your mental health. There's a whole bunch of other stuff that goes deeper than simply bullying somebody, correct?
Yes, it's not just about nasty people online,
Yeah.
although, we hope the Guardians grow and can surround people who are being isolated by these nasty people, and protect them and make them feel like, they're not alone in their suffering. But yeah, we want to go after people who have caused objective damages. And it's not like we're doxing people. We want people we want their identities linked to their accounts in such a way that it's impossible for them to roam around online and just randomly torture people. Once you've proven to be a bad actor by objectively hurting folks, we hope that this information is shared between platforms. That doesn't mean it to the public, but between platforms, so that you're flagged when you go onto another platform, and you better behave yourself or you're going to get booted permanently.
And I think that they should have been doing that all along anyway, because before you can have an account, you have to give certain information, but you can give a bogus phone number and a bogus email. So it's not really that intricate of a process to get an account.
Right. And I don't think they have objective standards.
No. And it's really scary because I even saw the other day, I'm friendly with Kirstie Alley, and she had posted yesterday or the day before that someone showed up at her house, just randomly at her doorstep. And she was like, you know, I have security, so I'm okay. But it's really creepy when somebody just shows up. And even if they have good intention, it's not a good way to start off a relationship with me if you're just showing up at my house. I'm not assuming you have good intention showing up at my house like that, uninvited.
That's correct. I should say that to any fans watching. It is not a good idea to show up to a celebrity's house because they don't know you. You may have a relationship with them because you know their work, but they don't have a relationship with you necessarily. And it is an incredible breach of a person's privacy just to show up at their doorstep and assume that they're going to understand that you're there benignly, particularly when there's so much hostility out there online. You don't know what a person's intentions are. So really, really be circumspect if you're thinking about doing that, because it's not a great idea. I do know an actor who somebody came to their door in the same way, and he brought a gun to the door and said, "Get the hell out of here."
Well, look at John Lennon. I mean, the whole John Lennon story is a perfect example of why you can't trust everybody, and that's why people have to be a little bit more careful about what's going on.
Indeed.
I mean, he was murdered by somebody who claimed to be his fan. And I know you and I have worked together in Vegas, but I still wouldn't show up at your doorstep just because I'm in town. That it would have to be an understood thing, or meet for coffee or something. It wouldn't be all of a sudden at your house. How to get your address? How do I show up here?
But you can. You're okay.
Yeah, but I just wouldn't assume that would be a good idea for me to show up at your door, not having invited.
Correct.
It would be, kind of weirdness. The other thing too about all this is that people now, because you're doing this, are finding fault with every single thing and every step that you're taking. So besides them saying that it's illegal what you're doing, today it was you funded it yourself. So it didn't reach the funding in time, but you came up with the money to fund the rest of it. I don't think they understand how funding works, because I've done fundraising for projects before, movies, indie television shows, Eastsiders that I produced. We did all that online, raised money. So when you have a project, you can have a 6-month timeline to raise the money. In that time, it's a pretty slow go. You get money, The last few days of any fundraising is usually a big push. And that's when people, you're saying, we only have 2 days left. We only have a day. We only have 2 hours. Big money comes in. So I don't know if they understand this part of it, but you did not go into your bank and go fund it, because you could have just done that in the first place.
That's correct. First of all, the fact that they tried to make it a class exploitation thing, that me, the wealthy guy, was somehow exploiting poor people to get a project done. That's what they were. That's the narrative they were trying to create. Even if I did fund it, there would be nothing morally wrong with that, and I would say it up front, because I have no guilt or shame about saying, "Oh, I needed to put the money in to fund it." The actual fact is, we had 2 people that I did a podcast for, Mark Gleason and Rick Rapetti. Rick Rapetti is a philosopher. Mark Gleason is sort of a philosopher as well, but he's an IT guy, and he has a show called Level to Power. It's a philosophical show, and they talk about success. And I've been on that show, and they're extreme advocates for anti-bullying campaigns. And they told me that they started advertising that they were going to match funds. And then literally about 40 hours before the deadline, Rick contacted me on DMs, and he said, "I think we have a prospect here for you that you might get full funding." So of course, I was fully anticipating that we weren't going to make our deadline, and we had options. We had other options, you know, that Julie Caitlin Brown had sort of hooked me up with. And so we were going to try another avenue and another funding source. We were getting prepared to do that when Rick said, "You're funded." So I don't know who did it yet. I can't wait to find out who it was. But for all you trolls, it wasn't me. And guess what? I wouldn't be afraid to say it was me if it was.
There's no shame in that at all. And there are people called angel investors who invest in things like this that may never want to give you their name. So these things happen all the time. It's not rare. It's not a rare occurrence. These things are always happening. And that's what funding is for. That's why people go there to get funding. They go online. Yeah. That's a good part of the internet, I think. I feel like there are good points of the internet, that being one of them.
Yes, indeed.
And also, I want to point out too that the Guardian Project is not the first time that you've been proactive about a subject that was close to your heart. You had a movie that was tied into suicide prevention called The Last Train. You and your wife were involved in that. You want to talk about that a little bit, how you got involved in that and why at that time it was important to you and now it's important?
So Anthony Montez, who wrote he wrote a play called The Last Train, and I guess it was a success. I happened to go way back with Anthony Montez. Anthony Montez was one of the co-founders of the theater company that I started studying with and eventually taught at. And he wrote a screenplay that the main actress was supposed to direct. She got pregnant and didn't want to split her duties between producing, acting, and directing because she was also pregnant. And so she gave the project to my wife to direct, sort of very last minute. So Tracy had to really scramble to make it work. But the story itself was about Anthony's real suicide attempt. He really threw himself off the subway onto the tracks. And at the last minute decided to save his life and had to press himself up against the other side of the subway tunnel. And I think the train hit him and broke his arm, but he lived. But he wrote from his lived experience. And because I've been pretty intensely involved in mental health issues, it struck me, and we were having some problems completing the film, and so we needed to start a Kickstarter for the film. We needed $6,000 to do on-site shooting in Brooklyn, and
my home
other parts of yeah, we were in Dumbo most of the time there and shooting all around Brooklyn, and so we needed the funds for that, so we raised it and we got it, and we were able to finish the film. And now it's in Walmarts everywhere.
Yay, Walmart.
So go check out The Last Train at a Walmart near you. And so it was a very positive message. And I've also done fundraisers for Attitudes in Reverse. You know, I became very close to the founders of that suicide prevention organization because I met them literally the day after my best friend's funeral. After he committed suicide, and so I became a board member and a very active member for a while, and support them in their endeavors. They go to school and they talk to kids, and they go to hospitals and help people who are not feeling good. And I've raised some money for them. Of course, I got a lot of crap for that too, because the shirt that I had was like a pro reason shirt, and everybody thought that was anti mental health for some reason. And so a lot of people jumped on the train and robbed others of the great organization that AIR is, unfortunately. You know, folks out there, if there's a troll watching, you're not hurting me when you're dissing on the charity that I'm trying to promote. You're hurting the other people who I'm trying to help. So live with that.
But they don't even do their research. If you really research things, you can find out if a charity organization is legit or not. And I see them jumping on bandwagons for charities that are not legit at all because they're tied in with some type of celebrity thing. And they're like, oh, well, I could meet this celebrity if I donate money to this charity. And they'll donate money without thinking. But when it comes to a true cause that you're involved with for no reason, with no gain, that we're going to jump on because we just don't like you. It doesn't make it doesn't tie in. It doesn't make sense to me that they don't do their due diligence when it comes to everything, only when it comes to someone they want to attack.
That's it. And then they don't even do their due diligence there.
No.
They decontextualize everything to tell their narrative. So it's not even like they're looking for the truth.
No, never. And
It's,
they have a
it's
narrative they
ugly.
have created. It's just
It's
horrible.
so ugly.
And then to get away from the ugliness a little bit, you were talking about taking acting classes, but you also teach acting. And I think I know a few of your students. I know
Oh,
Shaka
yeah?
Smith talks highly of you, and
Okay.
he said I posted a picture of you once, and he was like, I had his acting class. And I think the twins, Russell and Matthew Lewis from the Queen's Gambit, weren't they in one of your acting classes too, I think, in LA?
It's highly possible.
Sometimes I thought they mentioned that they had taken acting classes with you. So, and they're really
It's very
good friends of mine.
possible.
So I wanted to know with that, how did you get into doing that part? And then you're always so highly spoken of, so obviously you know what you're doing, because I've never heard a bad word about you when it comes to your acting classes. So how did you start teaching? Was it just something naturally progression-wise, or?
Yeah, I don't think my mentor wanted me to teach, but I did. I love teaching. I knew that at the time. I know it even more now, the better I got at it. Yeah, I just started doing it. I don't know. I just asked him if I could do it. I just, on a sort of a lark, I said, "Can I start teaching classes?" He said, "Sure." And the way we do it at that school at the time was, when you started teaching, you just taught advanced or rehearsal classes. So the idea being that you can't fuck up an advanced student too much, because they sort of have a technique under their belt. So that's how you work out all your issues, because most teachers tend to talk too damn much. I've been to many acting classes where a celebrity acting teacher will talk for an hour and a half about a scene he could have talked about in 15 minutes. And you realize that, oh, this is about him. It's not really about the actors. And for me, I like it to be about the actors, and them. It's not my show. So you start out in advanced, teaching advanced, basically, at your level. And we're more or less directing scenes. And in rehearsal class, you're not really tampering with people. You're just watching and guiding work. And then over time, you graduate down to intermediate, where you're teaching people who need more hands-on training. And then eventually you teach beginning. And so I taught all levels for about 18 years.
Wow.
Till about 2013, I want to say, was when I would go back and forth all the time in that 18 years and teach. But then there came a time when I had to live other places, and I couldn't come back and teach, so my classes were suffering. So Bob just handed my classes over and said, "Well, anytime you want to come teach your own particular classes, you can." And I never did that, because my wife sort of steered us in the European direction, and she started a school in Paris, and or co-founded a school in Paris, and now we're sort of off doing other things in Paris. She's establishing another school there. And I love teaching. It's Meisner, so it's all about being in the moment and being open and alive and sensual, and it's really great watching students be able to access their own authenticity for the first time, and to really connect with another person on stage for the first time. I feel like I'm giving birth when I'm able to facilitate that, up there. And to watch students grow from, mechanical, or have ideas about acting that make them really stiff and nervous, to really alive, passionate people up there. It's really rewarding. It's more rewarding even than acting, because acting can be miserable, right? Like Philip Seymour Hoffman would say, when they would say, "Isn't acting fun?" He'd say, "No, it's not fun. It's work." And I think Sean Penn might have said, "No, acting is work. It's not fun. An 8-ball and 2 hookers is fun. Acting isn't fun." So sometimes it can be, but it really is hard work, and it's more rewarding to see people come alive and be born up there. I love that.
What's a piece of advice you would give somebody who was thinking about going into acting and had never done it before? Because a lot of people seem to think they have a natural talent for it, but there's a little bit of work that has to go into it. You can't just show up usually.
Correct. There's very few people who have been able to pull off the never having studied, but are great. Very few people who are able to do that, because acting on film, for television, and on stage is a complete artifice, right? It's one obstacle after another to having a real moment with somebody, and you do need to have a way of keeping your focus when all this craziness is going on around you. And that's essentially what a technique is. So the advice that I would give to an actor is, one, it's a craft, so treat it like a craft. It's not something that you can just do, just like you can't go in and be a brain surgeon. You got to study, you got to work at it, and you got to habituate a way of working. And that's just that. But what I mean by studying is read plays, watch movies, write about them, study them, break characters down, figure out what stories are about, so that when it comes time to you working, you can look at a scene and say, this is what this is. And it's simpler for you. So yeah, that means be on stage 4 times a week. Be reading plays every single week. Watch a new movie and study it, a new director every single week. Learn languages, do movement, work on your voice. Like Jeff Goldblum used to say, when he wasn't working, he treated acting as his job, which meant he worked at it 8 hours a day in some way or another. That's what I would say to any actor. And when I say that to young actors, they look at me like, when they say, what can we do to be successful? And you say, work hard.
Yeah.
They look at you like you have 5 heads. What do you mean? Yeah, there's no secret. There's no secret to it.
Easy. You
work hard.
I mean, I was asked to be in a tiny part in a series last year, and I did it. And they did it because my character was really me as a hairdresser, which I'm not a hairdresser. And I learned right there that this is not an easy thing to do, because I figured it is me. They wrote it to be me, but I'm not a hairdresser, so I didn't even know how to do hair. So I was like, this is not easy for me to do. I don't know the first thing about doing hair. I don't know if I'm doing the right thing. But yeah, it's a lot. It takes a lot of work, and it's a lot of hours on set doing nothing. A lot of hours on set practicing.
Sure. Yeah. And even for most movies and TV, you don't really get practice per se. You don't get rehearsal time. You just you get a little bit before to block out the scene, so the camera guys know where to go and they know where to set the lights up. And so you better have some good ideas about what you want to do when you go in there, because you're not going to develop them on the sly unless you're a brilliant improvisationalist. You're going to have to know
most people aren't that either.
They aren't, correct. Some are, but most aren't. So work hard and you'll be successful, even if you're not making a lot of money. You'll be successful because the work is rewarding.
Yeah. Well, that's the other misconception, is that it's about being rich, which it's not about being rich. It's about immersing yourself in this culture and this art. Our world is like artistic expression more than anything else. So it's not necessarily about being rich.
It isn't. And you better not make it about being rich, because 99.9% of the folks aren't rich. And even those that are took a long time to acquire that. And I remember when I was working in Tangier with John Hamm, we were talking about, doggone it, I just forgot the name of the show that made him famous. Mad Men. Sorry. Yeah. We were talking about that, and you expect, how long was he on that show? 4 or 5 years. You're like, you expect lots of wealth to be trickling down to the main guy of a show like that, and that's simply not that wasn't the case until maybe the last 2 years. So it's like, people don't understand that you may be famous and gaining celebrity, but you're still a journeyman, in the sense that you're if like for Lost, I remember going on a radio show and the radio hosts were obsessed with the amount of money I was making. You're rich. You must be rich. Well, no, I'm making double scale. I'm making double scale because I'm a recurring guest star. So that's not a lot of money, especially in the scheme of an acting world where that may be the only gig that you get for the next year. When you're a regular in a TV show, sure, you're making good money. But there's all types of different regulars too. You could be a fractional series regular, in which case you're making good money for half the series. But
and it depends on what network you're on too, because big network makes more money and then smaller networks make smaller money. Everything is not Friends. Everything is not going to be a Friends situation where
everybody looks at Friends and like, those guys were making $1 million an episode and it took them 4 days to shoot each episode. You have it easy. Well, no, it took them a long time to get there. Number one, they were in a show for a decade, for crying out loud. They had solidarity. They decided to negotiate as a team, which is great. And they were very talented.
They're on a major network.
They're on a major network and they're very talented. They deserved everything they got. I love them dearly. I don't even know them.
Yep.
I don't even know them, but
I don't know them either, but they've brought us so much enjoyment. We love them.
You know what? Yeah. In fact, as an acting coach, I recommend Friends all the time to people to watch.
Really?
Because if you listen to the words that they're saying, they're oftentimes the words are not funny, but what they do and how they express themselves in the moment is so priceless. It's so specific and such a study that it makes you laugh. They know who they are and they know what they're doing so well that they make it work no matter what, and they deserve what they get. And Jennifer Aniston to me is a rock star actress anyway. I mean, she did some amazing independent feature films that tore me to shreds. She's got a big soul and I love watching her. And so anyway, everybody's not Friends. Everybody who's on a list doesn't mean they're making A-list money. It means they're working and they're competent. They're very good at what they do and they deserve to be respected for that. But quit treating everybody like they're Leonardo DiCaprio. I think that's one of the reasons they can attack you. Oh, you're a check mark. Oh, you have money in the bank. Fuck you. I can take you down. You'll get something later on. No,
but then the difference too is,
good.
You can ignore a lot of that. So people say if somebody's bullying you, ignore them, and you can ignore them. There are celebrities that go on and they just post. They don't interact at all. They post, that's it. But these people are attacking you. So now even if that person's just posting and leaving, and someone went after them like this, they'd have to eventually acknowledge it because it's ruining them. So it's not like I can just say, well, I'm just posting. I'm not answering anybody. This is not even a matter of answering. It's a matter of being attacked all the time and having character torn apart.
That's exactly what they're doing. And for anybody who has any sense of pride in the fact that they've taken years to build up a character, only to have some twerp in the basement of their mom's apartment try to take you out in a matter of seconds with bullshit. Of course that makes you mad, and of course you want to fight back. So
of course.
I'm learning different styles of communicating and or cutting people off like that, but it took me a while. But I'm not the type of guy that you slap and don't expect to get something in return.
I mean, the block button can only go so far, because if you block somebody but they're still going to attack you, the block button's not going to work either. So they leave you no choice but to do something proactive. The other things are not proactive; they're just passive.
And that's what they feed on too. They're emotional vampires, or like little. They're like little rage sharks. Like when the rage. When they get in rage, it's like blood in the water, and then they all start attacking at once, saying the same lies over and over and over again, and it gets really demoralizing for people who don't have a group around them protecting them.
And I have a feeling if you went to the deep issue with them and tried to find out from them what is enraging them so much, at some point they couldn't even tell you what it is anymore, because they get so caught up in this rage, they have no idea what originally set them off in the first place, because it's not even that important.
You know what? And I would even go one step further and say what's really bothering them, they're not aware of.
It's not on you either.
I'm just a totem. I'm just something. I'm the scapegoat for them to attack instead of looking at themselves.
Also, I want to talk just a little bit about the quarantine. How you've been keeping yourself sane and healthy, because these days we don't know if we're out of quarantine or in quarantine or what we're doing anymore. So how have you been navigating this whole thing?
Personally, it's not a whole lot different from the way I live my life anyway. I have a very private private life, and I work in my home. You know, I write, The only thing I can't do is interact with others in an acting capacity. So I can't rehearse with others the way I used to. I did do a little play for the Ayn Rand Institute where I played John Galt, and we did it on Zoom or some format like Zoom, and that was it was a staged reading, and that was sort of interesting. But I feel like I've been more creative. I've been able to get the Guardian project off the ground. I wrote a script thanks to my wife. I took her class, and I wrote a script. And this time, I'm coming up with another one. And I've been doing a whole lot of reading and working out. I've changed my body. I've changed my diet. I've changed all my habits. I quit drinking. I quit drinking 2.5 years ago, but I've stuck to it. The quarantine hasn't driven me back to alcohol. The only thing that I think is really discouraging is to see the combination of social effects that I see going on. On the one hand, I see a type of compliance that is at once understandable but really disturbing, where I used to think that what made America exceptional among nations was the citizenry had an inherent aversion to arbitrary authority, and they just reacted against arbitrary authority. And nowadays, I feel like they're making fun of people who are acting against arbitrary authority, and they're marginalizing them and claiming that compliance with what the state wants to do is what you should be doing if you're a thinking individual. Well, definitely, if you're a thinking person, you shouldn't be going into a Walmart without a mask and saying, "I'm free, damn it." You know, you're just an idiot. But you're right in principle. You're right in principle. The state has no right to shut you down or tell you what to do. If you're an actual disease-carrying person who refuses to respect the community, that's one thing. But if you're an otherwise healthy person, they can't shut you down. They have no power to do that. The fact that we're now claiming they do and allowing them to do it is what I think has allowed them to go from a 2-week flattening the curve series of actions to 6 months of imprisonment and telling us how many people we can have in our goddamn Thanksgiving dinners, the possibility of shutting down Christmas. I mean, these people are drunk with power, and lots of Americans are letting them get away with it. So that's disturbing.
Definitely.
And that's not even counting the people who are succumbing to mental illness, whose businesses are being destroyed,
it's so much.
Whose incomes are being decimated by this, and by a political class who breaks the rules. I mean, Gavin Newsom having dinner at an expensive French restaurant after telling people they can't do it. Other assembly people being caught in restaurants after saying it's too dangerous to eat outside even.
Or going to hairdressers when they were told they're not supposed to be going
Pelosi doing it, and then instead of taking it on the chin saying she was set up. I mean, these people are charlatans. They're frauds. They need to go. We should have voted everybody out.
I agree with you.
That's what I did.
Was Pelosi the one that went on the Tonight Show or something with the ice cream she eats that was like such an expensive artisan ice cream right in the middle of the pandemic, and everybody was out of work, and she's showing this ice cream no one could possibly afford to eat even if they were working?
Oh like, my God. I don't know, but I wouldn't put it past
her. If you could describe yourself in 3 hashtags, what 3 hashtags would you choose? Describe Mark Pellegrino.
Hashtag spicy, hashtag watch out, hashtag love me.
And because I call this project that I'm doing now Prelude to Positivity, I'm not even sure if positivity is a word or not. It's just something that came to me one day and wouldn't leave my mind for some reason. But I felt like every time we're in a bad situation or a bad period of life, it turns out that it really most times is a prelude to something positive coming. So can you recall a time in your life when maybe you thought, this is the worst possible place I could be, but actually it was leading you into something more positive, or something positive came up from that or after that?
I mean, I can't think of a single bad thing that's happened to me that hasn't turned out that way. Like, from sort of walking away from Playhouse West, which was my school for 18 years. I sort of walked away from it for various reasons, but I felt like I was walking into myself. I felt like there was a part of me that was like Playhouse, even though I'd go there to teach, I'd do plays. I felt a sense of camaraderie with the other actors there. There was a part of it that was a bit clinging on to the side of the pool and not pushing out into the deep end on my own and discovering what I'm about. So, you sometimes cut ties with folks and you discover that your identity is caught up in the wrong things. And you then place it on the things that are eternal, that can't leave you, that are inside you. And it's a much better place to be. I mean, I found the same thing when my mom passed away. I found strength inside me that I didn't know I had. I found eloquence inside me that I didn't know I had when I said her eulogy. And I've found reconciliation with her that I didn't know was possible. And I think that's made me a more whole human being. There's so many things I could come up with that I think in the moment look awful, and you're crying your eyes out and you think you're never going to see the end of this pain. And then it only happens that, wow, now you met the love of your life. Or, had you not broken up with this person, you would have never met the love of your life. And it's really hard to let go of the side of the pool, and go and swim out and tread water in the deep end. But I encourage people to do it if you can.
That was very good advice. Is there one thing that you absolutely cannot live without, and then one thing that you wish we could all live without?
I can absolutely not live without my dog, Frankie. And he's getting older. He's 13 years old. He's listening to me, so I don't want to say too much. Right, buddy? But he is, I'm freakishly in love with him. I've been in love with him for 13 years. And my heart breaks when I look at him because I feel like I see a picture that he doesn't see.
Right.
And he makes my life so meaningful in so many ways. And what could I do without social media? I mean, it's great in many ways. It's connected me to some of the most interesting, cool, deep people I've ever known. But on the other hand, it comes with a big hunk of baggage that is just so toxic.
And a big price.
And a big price. And, you can get addicted to the negativity. To try to crush the negativity, you start becoming feverishly addicted to it in a weird way, like scratching a scab. You think this is going to stop the itching, but it makes it worse. So I'm definitely going to step back more and more from social media. It'll just be better for my personal life and health.
I don't blame you for that. What's up next for you? Do you have any projects that you know of coming up that you want to?
Yes, I do have a project, but I'm not going to say exactly what it is, just because trolls. So, but I was supposed to start it last March, but COVID hit, and so we have an official start date of March 8th, 2021.
Okay.
So that means I'll probably have to go out to the location sometime in the middle of winter, February, and set up shop there until June, somewhere thereabouts. And I'm really looking forward to the project. The people involved are spectacular human beings. They're amazing actors, writers, producers, directors. So I think it's going to be a very good show. And then I hope we have the concert. What do you hope again.
I hope so too. What do you hope that we all get out of we're in this period right now where we don't even know what's happening and this negativity that we've been dealing with, but what do you hope is one thing we can take away from this going forward after it's all over, hopefully?
In the political, Johnny, don't do that, baby. Don't do that. My dog licks the floor, and it's so low rent. I don't know what to do with her. So I think on a political level, we should take from this that the political class has absolutely no idea what they're doing, And if they're given any more power, they'll just fuck us up beyond all recognition. And we should start divesting them of all power as soon as possible and take our own lives in our own hands the way the universe intended. I think personally we can take away from this that there's a lot less that we need a lot less than we thought we did. We need less, some less people in our lives. I'm sure many of us have jettisoned people that are extra baggage, and we need a lot less things. And I don't mean that in an anti-materialistic way. I just mean I think we've pared down enough to be more simple, and that's not a bad thing.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
So if people that are out there that want to follow you because they like you and they agree with you and they don't want to troll you, what's the best way to follow you and keep up with everything? Is it Twitter?
Yeah, I think Mark R. Pellegrino on Twitter, and also Mark Ross Pelly on Instagram. Mostly on Instagram, you get my dogs and my cat. So people think there's two different people operating the accounts, because one side is philosophy and politics and my unabashed opinion about everything, and the other side is just how adorable my animals are and how in love I am with them.
Well, you're not allowed to be multifaceted. I mean, come on.
I guess not.
That's called yeah, well, to certain people, they only want you to be the person they don't like, and it could work the other way too. Some people like you so much in one way, they don't want to know the other side either. So that works both ways on social media.
I try not to cross media lines like that. I try to leave one thing completely benign so that nobody gets freaked out.
It's hard. It's hard. Is there any last things you want to leave everybody with?
Yes, you are, therefore you think. So never do what you feel, do what you think. Now, I don't mean that entirely, of course, sometimes what you feel is exactly what needs to happen, but I want you to think before you do things. And I will take my own advice and do the same. And I think if we do that, the world will be a better place.
I agree. I think that is great advice. I want to thank you for agreeing to do this and invite you to come anytime you want. Hopefully we're out of this mess soon and we can talk about projects and more interesting things than just we've been stuck in our house. But
that would be great.
I wish you luck with the Guardian Project, and hopefully I can be more involved with the Guardian Project with you and things like that. So
I'll keep you posted. I'll keep you posted. Thank you.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you.